This hand here is against the player Chris, known as LudaChris. So him and I have had a pretty big rivalry. And, you know, admittedly, I've been getting the best of Chris for a long time. Sometimes it's just that way. There's certain players you can't beat, certain players that you just get the best of. So for right now, we're in that mode where, you know, I've been getting the best of him. And he's a fighter, and he does not want to quit. Chris probably 3 and 4 bets more than any player at the table, but specifically targets me anytime I'm in a hand. He's just trying to get this streak to break and to win a really big one against me one day. That's probably his life goal. And so we battle. And these are like unorthodox battles. So this hand I'm going to show you, I mean, it kind of plays itself, but I do some weird things in it because it's Chris. There probably is some things that I would do differently if it was against different players, and that's why poker, you can analyze poker, you can talk percentages, but there's a meta game, and there's a part of poker where it's player dependent, and this definitely is one of those hands. So let's take a look at it. I wake up here with 6s in the small blind. Eli had brought it raised from the cutoff to 500, and I'm in the small blind out of position with a pretty polarized hand. So I decide to just flat here and call the raise. Well, LudaChris is to my left. Anytime Chris is to your left, you're going to have to be on your toes because he goes after pots regardless of what's in his hand. But this particular hand, I like his raise. It's the 10 jack of clubs. The hand actually plays really well, so I like his 4-bet here. And it's a hand that is disguised. You know, he hits the right type of flop. He's got a lot of options. So Chris bumps it up. Let's see what he bumps it up to 2,600. Gets rid of Eli, and I make the call $2,100 more, and we see a flop. Now this flop couldn't turned out better for me. I flop top set of 6s, and of course this board here is actually pretty wet, and it obviously see the 2 clubs. We got straight draw possibilities, so this is a hand that's pretty wet. But I know that regardless what Chris has, and he could have anything. Listen, Chris is going to sometimes go after pots with nothing or with the nuts, and that's what makes it so tough to play against him. So in this case here, what I do is I think it out and I decide to check to the razor. So Chris here decides to put in 5K, pot size bet. Now, against any other player, I would probably raise here out of position. I'd probably pop it up to like 15 or 16,000. I don't want to slow play a hand that has such a wet board against a player that could have any 2 cards. But at the same time, because he could have any 2 cards, it's not just repping a straight or a flush. Sometimes he's just c-betting. And so I do something really unorthodox because, you know, I want Chris to not know what the hell's going on. So I just min raise. I min click it to 5,000. To 10,000. So I min click it 5,000 more. And of course, Chris is going nowhere with the flush draw. So he's going to think for a second. He's going to put in the $5,000, and we're going to go to a turn. Okay, so now we got a pot of 25,950, and look at this. It could not be a worse card for me in the deck. It brings in straight draws, club draws, everything. But the thing is Chris has to understand that applies to me too. So I definitely don't want to press this pot. I do want to have some pot control. So I'm going to check it back to Chris. I have to believe with the player he is, he's going to put more money into this pot. Because if he does not have clubs here, if he does not have a straight, he's still going to put pressure on me repping a straight draw or a club draw. So I know right now, even before Chris makes a move, that I'm going to have to, if I want to see a river, which I can't imagine not seeing a river with a set of 6s, then I'm going to have to put in some money here. The answer now is just how much. I expect it to be a big size bet from Chris. If he just turned a made hand, or he's got just a nothing burger, I would expect the same out of him. So let's go and let's see what Chris does. So I check it over.
Call. What's your size?
LudaChris fish thinks it out for a second, and he's going to put into this pot another, I believe it was, yeah, $18,000, bringing this pot to $43,950. With the this is edited a little bit. I did take some time, but I made the call here. I think if I don't call here, what are you going to do? I mean, you just can't play poker. But I have a real sick feeling that I could be behind here. But I'm in the pot. I got a set of sixes. I got a really wet board, and I am praying to the poker gods that the board pairs, because I really believe in my heart if I need it. And here's the thing. Whether the board pairs, whether it blanks, no matter what it does, I know Chris as a player, if he's got the goods, of course he's going to put more money in this pot. If he doesn't, and he has, let's say, ace high, Chris has no choice unless he just wants to go on give up mode. But Chris has put too much money in this pot. So I know no matter what happens on this river, I'm going to be I'm making a big decision with my set of sixes, or if I board pairs, then I'm going to be looking at a full house, and the decision's not as big. It just gets a little tricky with him of how to play it. So let's see what happens. The poker gods decide they want to bless me today, and it's a 5. If you go, I'll put a link in the description if you want to hear the commentary. If you haven't seen this hand, the commentators go nuts on this hand. It's pretty fun to listen to, and you can check it out if you want to see it in its raw form. But now look at this. I have sixes full. Well, I know I got a lunatic on my left that's putting money in this pot. I don't think the board pairing is going to scare Chris. Especially, if he has nothing, he's putting money into this pot. He's going to put me to the test. And if he does have a straight here, or he has a flush, I know Chris, paired boards generally don't stop him. He will put money in the pot, and then, as he should, deal with it later if he gets raised. And so I'm thinking to myself, what's the best way to induce more money out of this guy? And what I decided to go with was a really unorthodox play. I don't think the way I played this hand, I would have played it against anyone else at the table this way. No way. I could go through the players at this table, and I would not have played it this way. Some of the other players are cautious. They don't have the same style as Chris, but I know who I'm dealing with because I've been in so many hands with this guy, and I've seen so many of his hands that I know what he's going to do and what he wants to do. So I decide to put in a small bet. Now the pot's $61,950. Why in the world would I put a bet in like 9,000? Well, maybe I have 2 pair here and I want to look strong and put in a small bet, or I want to make a blocker bet so he doesn't put in a big bet and maybe just calls down because I'm so committed to this pot. But whatever the reason in my head that day, I just decided, look, I'm not checking back here, but I'm not going to bomb this. And he's a good enough player. If I bomb this and shove, or anything close to that, he could make a fold with the clubs or a straight, or even a set himself. Or excuse me, can't have a set because he'd have a full house. I mean, obviously could have 3s full, but that's just not where I put him. So I go ahead and do something really unorthodox, and I put in 9,000 into this pot. And I'm praying that the Chris I know shows up and decides to come over me and thinks this is just a nonsense block bet. And when he starts grabbing those chocolate chips and he decides to bump it up to 35,000. So now it's 26,000 for me to call. I have 42,920 back. Obviously, I'm going to shove here. This is what I wanted. And now I'm just praying, please have maybe the ace high nut flush so I could get a call out of him. Again, with Chris, his range is so wide. I really am at times here guessing, but hoping that he's got enough to put more money in this pot. So I just go all in. And if you watch the video in its raw form, you'll see Chris's tank. I don't leave the long tank up here for this video, but if you want to go watch it, the link will be there. It's a fun hand to watch, to listen to commentators. But of course, I shove. Chris goes into the tank a long ass time here. Starts talking to himself. I don't even think you get all the chatter that he gives in this video. And he's just laboring. He's saying things like, you know, this is so sick. You don't give any action unless you got it. I mean, I take that all the time. Great. And he almost at one point calls. He even says, hey, I almost called here. You see Robert Mayhem stand up and block the shot. I put my head down and just pray that the remaining, I think it was like, 19,000. I mean, this pot's 151,870. This is the biggest pot we've had at the time in the 5-5 ante game. And I'm thinking, man, whatever he has, if it's good enough, he would make this call because he's priced in. But Chris knows he cannot be good, and he folds it. And after he folds it, I think he says, you can watch the video on our other channel. I think he says something like that is, I forget what it was, but he does declare, like in this hand, how upset he was. He wanted to break the cards. He said, I'm really mad for the first time legitimately. And that's because we have so much history. And he was frustrated.